Good evening. You are watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. First, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq chairs a meeting of the COVID-19 Supreme Committee at Al Ma'mura Palace in Salalah. His Majesty the Sultan expresses his satisfaction over the significant decrease in the number of infections with the coronavirus COVID-19 and praises the high sense of responsibility shown by all members of the society towards the committee's decisions. And His Majesty the Sultan issues a royal decree. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq chaired this morning at Al Ma'mura Palace in the Wilaya of Salalah a meeting of the COVID-19 Supreme Committee. His Majesty the Sultan began the meeting by praising the significant decrease in the number of infections with the coronavirus COVID-19, expressing his satisfaction with the progress of the national vaccination campaign against this pandemic. His Majesty stressed that this improvement would not have been achieved without the appropriate decisions that were taken and the efforts made by all the authorities in the Sultanate, mainly the health sector, and the high sense of responsibility shown by all members of the society through their commitment to those decisions and the controls set by the concerned authorities that collectively help preserve the public health of individuals and the Omani society in general. His Majesty gave his royal directives to the Supreme Committee to take appropriate measures to deal with the pandemic in the coming period in order to ensure public health and the continuity of the work of all sectors of the state. His Majesty also expressed his thanks and appreciation to the Supreme Committee for its deliberate efforts to deal with this pandemic in its various stages and developments, and to all members of the society, citizens and residents, and to the government and private agencies, especially the health system and all health workers for their exceptional efforts in the past period by providing service and health care in the various governorates of the Sultanate, and the military and security agencies for their efforts to ensure the success of closures and movement prevention and other decisions adopted to control the outbreak of this disease, and for all media institutions for their role in spreading the correct scientific knowledge and awareness about the disease and ways to avoid and prevent it, as well as business owners and private sector companies for their understanding and support for the precautionary measures to contain this pandemic. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq urged everyone to receive immunization against this pandemic according to the program established for this, and to continue to abide by the decisions and controls that are approved by the Supreme Committee to ensure the health and safety of individuals and the Omani society. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq issued Royal Decree number 57/2021 on promulgating the System of Oman Investment Authority. Article 1 stipulates that the provisions of the System of Oman Investment Authority attached to this decree shall be enforced. Article 2, the Chairman of the Board of Directors of Oman Investment Authority shall issue the organizational regulations of the authority, as well as other regulations and decisions necessary for the application of the system attached. Till such time, the existing regulations and decisions shall continue to be enforced without prejudice to the provisions of the system attached to this decree. Article 3 cancels all that contradicts with the attached system or contravenes with its provisions. Article 4, this decree shall be published in the Official Gazette and come into effect from the following day of its publication. The Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Innovation launched the second phase of the national program for training associated with education, إعداد, to train university students in cooperation with the Petroleum Development Oman.
To empower the national cadres with dynamic skills and prepare them for the labor market, the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation launched the second phase of the إعداد program in collaboration with Petroleum Development Oman (PDO). The program targets third-year undergraduates studying in public and private higher education institutions.
This Iعداد program was launched last year in November 2020. We started with 5 academic institutions, and this year we have expanded the program to include 10 academic institutions. At the same time, last year we started with 5 industries, and this year we have expanded the program to include 13 industries. The aim of the program and the plan for the program for next year to include the majority of the academic institutions in the country, and at the same time to include the majority of the industries as well in the program.
إعداد program aims to align academic development with industry needs through equipping college students with the fourth industrial revolution, behavioral and communication skills through applied learning in a discipline that's needed by the industry.
We are honored with this cooperation in Oman LNG between the industry and the academic institutes under the umbrella of the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation in sponsoring and the execution of إعداد program for national training. It's a program with lots of benefit. Just to mention a few, it will bridge the gap between the academic and the industrial knowledge within the students, that in a way that it will enhance their opportunity in securing job opportunities, inshallah.
Besides launching إعداد program, several cooperation protocols were signed between the industrial and academic institutions to support the plans of إعداد program. The Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation also signed a cooperation agreement with PDO to finance 100 scholarships within the vocational diploma program in the vocational colleges for students of the Sultanate schools of the current academic year 2020-2021.
Over 19,000 job opportunities were provided at the public and private sectors in the Sultanate during the first 6 months of this year. The ministry stated that that accomplished percentage, according to the implementation plan, reached 58.9% out of the target number during this year. The ministry affirmed that 8,493 job opportunities were provided by the various entities of state administrative apparatus. It also pointed out that 951 job opportunities were provided by the sectors that are supervised by government authorities and units. 547 job opportunities were provided throughout the Ministry of Labor initiatives, and 3,449 job opportunities were offered throughout training and qualification from human resource development sector, which represents in-job or on-job training coupled with job and Riyadh program for small and medium enterprises. The Ministry of Health reported 6 deaths, 147 new COVID-19 cases and 208 recoveries. The ministry also reported that the total number of COVID-19 cases registered in the Sultanate reached 300,728, while the total number of deaths reached 4,013. The total recovered cases reached 289,130. The ministry indicated that the total number of inpatients during the last 24 hours reached 22, bringing the total number to 222, of which 95 are in intensive care units. The vaccination campaign against coronavirus COVID-19 is continuing, targeting school students at the age of 12 years and above. Figures neared the estimated number of 320,000 students in different governorates of the Sultanate. In the Wilaya of Sur, in the governorate of South Sharqiya, targeted male and female students flocked to vaccination centers to take the vaccines that reflected increasing awareness among parents and students on the importance of vaccination. Students expressed their hope to attend classes in their schools at the start of the upcoming scholastic year. Makers Oman, in collaboration with 3D Factory Company, held a 3D printing camp to train youngsters how to use this technology. More details in the following report.
To inspire school students aged between 12 and 17 to become innovative and visualize their designs from a sketch to a final product, 3D Factory Company, in collaboration with Makers Oman, held a 3D printing summer camp at the Innovation Park, Muscat.
3D Factory Lab is an institution focuses entirely on the digital manufacturing field in terms of 3D printing. We're currently providing a summer camp, a very comprehensive summer camp for the youngsters, and it focuses entirely on the 3D printing technology. The students will get from this program, number one, design software. The students are focused to learn the design software and eventually and ultimately use the technology at home.
Throughout the 5-day camp, the students gain hands-on experience on designing and 3D printing, including gaining insights into how to operate the 3D printer.
3D printing is good for being creative and innovative. Also, it can teach you how to deal with technologies. Over the past few days, I learned how to deal with the 3D printer. Also, I learned how to design new objects, for example, a house, or for example, a label.
I joined this course because 3D printing is what we're going to do in the future, and I want to know and I want to explore, because when I grow up I want to create things and I want to work more in this field. I learned how to operate a 3D printer, and I also learned what kind of things we can make from it and what kind of filaments we use to create the things like wood and plastic.
With appropriate tools and practical application, the course enables the learners to come up with a solution for any problem, design the solution, and turn it into an object using the 3D printer. Inculcating 3D printing technology among students at an early age does not only boost their confidence in the fourth industrial revolution technologies, but will also broaden their potentials to turn any idea into a creative possible solution. صالح بخلفان الرحبي, Sultanate of Oman Television, Muscat.
More than 15,000 traffic accidents took place in the Sultanate during the second quarter of this year, with an increase by 119% compared to the first quarter of this year. The insurance sector indicators issued by the Capital Market Authority showed that the volume of traffic accidents claims recorded great growth, amounting to more than 24,000 claims. Indicators also pointed out to increase in the total of damages amounts paid for these claims, reaching around 5,190,000 Omani riyals. The total paid damages and claims under settlement amounted to more than 23 million riyals. The Governorate of Muscat organized, in cooperation with the Ministry of Labor, a training workshop on the individual assessment, measurement and institutional excellence. The workshop, which was held at the presence of His Excellency Sayyid Saud bin Hilal bin Hamad Al Busaidi, Minister of State and Governor of Muscat, aimed at developing the human resources through building the culture of job excellence, improving performance assessment systems, and connecting productivity with incentives which would affect positively the quality level of rendered services to beneficiaries and enhance the community's trust on government performance. The individual performance system is one of the projects approved by His Majesty to be implemented in government units to be one of the pillars to achieve Oman Vision 2040. In Parliament, the British Prime Minister said that the new Taliban administration would be judged based on its actions, not words, as the group was currently allowing the evacuation of Afghanistan to proceed. More details in the following report.
The Taliban enforced their rule over Kabul on Monday after a lightning advance across the country that took just over a week to dethrone the country's previous government. The UK government has acknowledged that the Taliban are in control of the country as the situation in Afghanistan continues to be extremely difficult. Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan is a new reality that the UK would have to deal with.
The events in Afghanistan have unfolded and the collapse has been faster than I think even the Taliban themselves predicted. What is not true is to say that the UK government was unprepared or did not foresee this, because it was certainly part of our planning, pitting the very difficult logistical operation for the withdrawal of UK nationals has been under preparation for many months, Mr. Speaker, and I can tell the House that the decision to commission the emergency handling centre at the airport, the commissioning of that centre, took place 2 weeks ago.
A plane carrying more British nationals and Afghans landed at RAF Bryce Norton on Tuesday, as the UK government says evacuation process was making progress. The first flight of British nationals and embassy staff arrived on Sunday night.
I spoke to a Middle East country yesterday who contacted the Taliban on my behalf, the military leadership of the Taliban, to seek assurances. And the assurance I got back from that leadership was that these people would not be interfered with, and that they wanted to demonstrate that people could come and go to Afghanistan as freely as possible, and that have also, that they obviously want Western troops out of their country, so it's not in their interest to impede all of that, and we will make sure that we continue to do that.
Afghanistan will not pose a threat to the world. Taliban spokesman promised in a press conference, a first of its kind since Taliban took control of the country.
We're using our G7 presidency to make very clear to the Taliban that we will hold them to account for their commitment and never to allow Afghanistan to be used as a base for terror, to hold a more inclusive government and to protect the most essential human rights, including respecting the rights of women.
In Parliament today, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that the new Taliban regime would be judged based on its actions, not words, as the militant group was currently allowing the evacuation in Afghanistan to proceed.
Britain left the door open to diplomatic relations with the Taliban, suggesting the importance of engaging through direct or indirect means and working with countries including China on the future of Afghanistan, as they both share a common interest. Dayat Matar, Oman TV, London.
The Taliban's top political leader, who made a triumphant return to Afghanistan, battled the US and its allies for decades, spent 8 years in a Pakistani prison, and signed a landmark peace agreement with the Trump administration. Born in 1968 in the southern Uruzgan province, Bradar helped found the Taliban in the early 1990s. He fought alongside Mullah Muhammad Umar, the secretive one-eyed commander, who led the Taliban through its seizure of power in 1996 and its return to an insurgency following the 2001 US-led invasion. In 1994, Omar, Bradar, and others founded the Taliban, which means religious students. The group mainly consisted of clerics and young, pious men, many of whom had been driven from their homes and had known only war. During the group's 1996 to 2001 rule, the president and governing council were based in Kabul, but Bradar spent most of his time in Kandahar, the spiritual capital of the Taliban. The first outbreak in 6 months in New Zealand has grown to 7 people. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said today that number is expected to keep growing, especially after some of those infected spent time at a church, a school, a casino, and a hospital. Ardern also announced people will be compelled to wear masks when inside essential services such as supermarkets, petrol stations, and pharmacies during strict lockdowns. That came after the government yesterday imposed a strict lockdown of at least 3 days for the entire country and at least 7 days in Auckland and Coromandel after identifying their first infection. Ardren said genome testing has confirmed that the outbreak is of the Delta variant and originated from the outbreak in Sydney, although it's not yet clear how the virus breached New Zealand's border quarantine controls. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main headlines once again. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq chairs a meeting of the COVID-19 Supreme Committee at Al Ma'mura Palace in Salalah. His Majesty the Sultan expresses his satisfaction over the significant decrease in the number of infections with the coronavirus COVID-19 and praises the high sense of responsibility shown by all members of the society towards the committee's decisions. And His Majesty the Sultan issues a royal decree. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night and stay safe.